It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Vladimir Putin morally responsible for the death of a British woman poisoned by a Russian nerve agent. Dawn Sturgis died in Salisbury in 2018 after unwittingly spraying herself with Novichok. It had been dumped in a bin by two would-be Russian assassins in quantity enough to kill thousands of people. Also ahead, a furious response from Nigel Farage as he's asked about racist comments he's alleged to have made while at school. The Reform leader rejected the claims and accused broadcasters of double standards, demanding an apology from the BBC for its programming in the 70s and 80s. Warnings of unprecedented winter pressure for the NHS as the number of flu patients in England's hospitals hits a record high for this time of year. Plus, did the earth move for you? Tremors felt across Lancashire and the Lake District in an earthquake last night. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. Vladimir Putin has been branded morally responsible for the death of a British woman poisoned by a Russian nerve agent. Dawn Sturgis died in Salisbury in 2018 after spraying herself with Novichok in a perfume bottle. This was after her partner had found it discarded in a bin. The inquiry found that the weapon, enough to kill thousands of people, had been left by two agents sent on Mr. Putin's orders to attack a former Russian spy. Sky's Dan Whitehead reports.
An assassination attempt from the top of the Kremlin, with a Wiltshire mother caught in the deadly crossfire. 7 years on from the Novichok poisonings in Salisbury, the inquiry into Dawn Sturgis's death has published its findings.
Her death was needless and arbitrary. She was the entirely innocent victim of the cruel and cynical acts of others.
March 2018, it was former Russian spy Sergei Skripal who was the target of the poisoning. Two Russian GRU agents, who later claimed to be tourists, were captured on CCTV wandering the back streets of Salisbury. They're accused of smearing the military-grade chemical weapon on the front door handle of Sergei's home. He and his daughter Yulia were found slumped on a bench just hours later, but ultimately survived. More than 80 others attended A&E, with a police officer hospitalised. Fast forward 4 months, and 999 calls from Dawn's boyfriend Charlie Rowley come in. She was frothing at the mouth after spraying what she thought was perfume on herself. But inside the bottle, Novichok, enough, the inquiry heard, to kill thousands. The £8.3 million inquiry heard evidence from 40 witnesses over 7 weeks. It found that the 3 Russian agents who attacked Sergei Skripal with a chemical weapon were authorised at the highest level. They and President Vladimir Putin were morally responsible for Dawn Sturgis's death. It found there were failings by the British state in the management of Skripal as an exchanged prisoner, but agreed with the assessment at the time that he was not a significant risk of assassination. When it came to the treatment of Dawn Sturgis, the inquiry ruled she received entirely appropriate medical care and that her condition was in fact unsurvivable from a very early stage. Russia has always denied any involvement in the assassination attempt against the Skripals and Dawn's subsequent death. Despite this, the findings in the inquiry have led to fresh repercussions against Russia. Sanctions against the GRU intelligence unit responsible for the original attack against the Skripals, the ambassador summoned to the UK Foreign Office.
This report is clear. Moral responsibility lies with Putin, and it's further evidence of the shocking and reckless, hostile activity on UK soil.
For Dawn's family, it has been a long wait for answers.
Skripal was described by Putin as a traitor and convicted of treason. Yet, there were no sufficient and regular assessments of the risk he faced from Russian retaliation. As we have always believed, that put the British public at risk and led to Dawn's death.
We can have Dawn back now. She's been public for 7 years. We can finally put her to peace.
Perhaps some closure for Dawn's family and a Wiltshire city keen to move on from being at the centre of world attention. For UK-Russia relations, though, today's findings are yet another increase in growing tensions. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
Nigel Farage has launched a furious tirade against the BBC and ITV today, as he was asked about racist comments he's alleged to have made at school. The Reform UK leader read out a letter from a former pupil which he said cleared his name, and then he accused the broadcasters of double standards over their programming in the 1970s and 80s.
I've received many letters over the course of the last few days from people that I was at school with. This one I think is particularly relevant. I was a Jewish pupil at Dulwich College at the same time, and I remember him very well. While there was plenty of macho, tongue-in-cheek schoolboy banter, it was humour. And yes, sometimes it was offensive, rather like most of the BBC's output, but never with malice. I never heard him racially abuse anyone. If he had, he would have been reported and punished. He wasn't. The news stories are without evidence except for belatedly politically dubious recollections from nearly half a century ago. Back in the 1970s, the culture was very different. Perhaps, Damon, you should reflect on that. Especially at Dulwich. Lots of boys said things they'd regret today, or just laugh at. Whilst Nigel stood out, he was neither aggressive nor a racist. If I can help in any way, let me know. And I've had plenty of those messages over the course of the last few days, and I'm sick to death of the double standards and hypocrisy, above all, of your organisation. And what happened on the Today programme this morning was a complete bloody disgrace.
And Mr Farage insisted he had not made racist or anti-Semitic remarks in a malicious or nasty way, as he criticised ITV in response to a question from their political correspondent.
You were the channel of Bernard Manning. He occasionally appeared on the Beeb. Your channel, at the same time that I'm accused of saying this, which I deny in any malicious or nasty way, at the same time as that, you every single week had homophobic content, you had racist content, you had all sorts of content which these days you'd be locked up for. So let's cut the double standards from British broadcasters, shall we?
Our chief political correspondent John Craig has been following this story closely for us from Westminster. Nigel Farage forced to confront these questions again. They're not going away, are they, John?
His political opponents are keen to keep this row going in response to that extraordinary news conference in Westminster. The BBC chair, that's Anna Turley, Labour MP, said he keeps changing his story. Well, that's true up to a point. He did initially deny it all. Then, it was back in October, then in November he said it was banter in the playground. The Conservatives claimed that he'd more or less admitted the allegations were true. Notice in that clip we just heard how he said, "I deny saying it in a malicious or nasty way." Now, he went for ITV, as we've heard, over Bernard Manning, but he also went for the BBC in a big way. He talked about an interview on the radio, which he said was despicable and disgusting. Then he said he was surprised 500,000 people every year refused to pay the licence fee. And then he talked about the double standards and hypocrisy of the BBC. He said they were astonishing. And then he mentioned the black and white minstrels, because he said the BBC were happy to use blackface, black and white minstrels. It ain't half hot, mum. What about Alf Garnett, he said. And then he mentioned Bernard Manning as well. Well, I think later he realised Bernard Manning, I think I'm right in saying, was on ITV, not the BBC. But he says, I can't put up with the double standards of the BBC about what I'm alleged to have said 49 years ago and what you were putting out on mainstream content. And he demanded an apology for the BBC. He said that I want an apology for virtually everything you did throughout the 70s and 80s. It was an angry outburst. He clearly planned his attack on the BBC. He called the corporation's political correspondent first, attacked him, then, as we've heard, attacked ITV as well. In between, he took a question from Sam Coates, our own Sam Coates, about a big donation today to Reform UK, £9 million. But he also was there to attack the government's decision to postpone mayoral elections for 2 years. Monstrous, he said. But I think it's the attack on the broadcasters that will grab the headlines. I mean, he really was an angry tirade, even if it was planned. And it won't make the row go away, because Labour and the Conservatives are keen to make sure the row doesn't go away.
John, thank you. John Craig there. Health officials are warning of unprecedented winter pressures in the NHS after hospital flu admissions hit a record high for this time of year. The number of people in hospital in England with flu is 56% higher than this time 12 months ago. And an average of 1,717 flu patients were in hospital beds each day last week, including 69 in critical care. Our health correspondent Ashish Joshi has this report.
Hello, Paul. Hello. Professor Manavar again.
Paul rushed himself to A&E, struggling to breathe and with a sharp pain in his chest. He thought it was his heart. Instead, doctors discovered pneumonia.
I thought the end was near, I'll be honest. But
You thought you were going to die?
really did, yes.
Do you know, every winter, the doctors and the government and everyone else is telling us about respiratory illnesses. When you used to see those news reports, did you ever think it was this serious?
Not really, I'll be honest. It's like anything, isn't it? Until it happens to you.
Staff at the Royal Preston Hospital are under pressure. Flu season has hit harder and earlier, and resident doctor strikes are coming.
Flu certainly started coming in, all the other respiratory viruses. The hospital's getting busier, the emergency department's getting busier, the EMS service is getting busier, so pressure's building up very much as we anticipate. And as we've seen before, every year's just that little bit harder than the one before.
Ambulance teams are warning of a high number of calls, the sort of numbers they usually see on New Year's Eve.
It's a midweek morning and this emergency department is already heaving with patients. Almost every bed there has been taken up. There are patients waiting through the reception area. They're waiting to be seen. And almost every bay here has got a patient in it already. And there are more patients in the corridors just around the corner. What I've seen from walking around is it seems to me that nearly every patient here is quite elderly. And these are the patients who are most susceptible to these winter viruses, RSV and flu. And when there's pressure building up in here with patients, that pressure then transfers throughout the rest of the hospital.
What do the numbers tell you? What does the data tell you?
It's been a very tough winter already, and I fear for what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
Almost 17 million people in England have taken a flu vaccine this winter, but less than half of all frontline NHS staff have opted for the jab.
Generally, there is a lot of vaccine hesitancy, isn't there, among NHS staff?
Correct, which is unfortunate, because the way to protect our patients and ourselves and the staff and our families
and the
is
rest
to get
of the community.
vaccinated. Absolutely.
Can I quickly have a... Can you please ring 2323 and ask...
The team is trying to move Paul out of bed, but his heart rate climbs to over 150 beats per minute. That's the same as if he'd been running. Paul's hopeful he'll be back home in time for Christmas, but first he'll have to get much better. Ashish Joshi, Sky News in Preston.
Okay, everything is right.
Well, let's bring in former Director of Primary Care for NHS England, Dr Nikita Kanani. Good evening to you, Nikita.
Hi,
flu season starting earlier this year, probably yet to reach its peak. Why is the flu season so much worse this year?
Oh, look, I mean, we are, as you say, and we were here last year as well. We did talk about this. We're seeing flu coming earlier and earlier every year, and it's certainly feeling more intense already. And that's putting lots of pressure, real pressure on hospitals and on our staff. And there's a number of things behind these numbers. It's a real mix of lower background immunity in some age groups, particularly children and older adults. There's a strong circulation of influenza A, which tends to hit a bit harder. And the timing of the cold weather is pushing more people indoors. And when all of that comes together, you see rises in admissions and then a knock-on pressure across urgent and emergency care.
Has any of this got to do with flu vaccination rates amongst the general public? Where are we on the flu jab? Are people taking it up when it's offered?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we're doing quite well in terms of uptake. So lots of people have been coming forward quite early in the season to make sure that they're protected. And actually, we're seeing lots of people who aren't in the traditional buckets where they get their flu jab offered for free in the NHS, actually opting to pay as well to get that additional protection. We're part way through that winter vaccination programme at the moment. So particularly older adults have been really good at getting their vaccination, but there's always room to improve. And it's not too late. So if you haven't already had your flu vaccination, please do go ahead and get it. It's a great way to get protected as the winter rolls on.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Is it too late to get the flu jab? But clearly not.
Yeah, no,
on average, how long does the season last for, the flu season?
I mean, we can see it go on into the new year, but actually for older and more vulnerable individuals, the sooner you get the jab, the better your protection is as we go into winter.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen those scenes inside one hospital where our health correspondent Ashish Joshi was. That's just a snapshot of what's being replicated across the UK within the NHS. So what are you seeing in your surgery with regard to this flu season?
I mean, often our surgeries are sort of full in terms of the appointments that we're offering for people with coughs and colds that are tipping into flu, tipping into something quite serious. You know, if people are feeling unwell, it is important that we hear from them. There's lots of ways to contact us now in general practice, whether that's through the online form or coming in if you're not so confident online, to get that early support so that it doesn't become something that ends up in hospital. But the most powerful thing that people can do to prevent infection is the vaccination. It's staying at home when they're feeling unwell and helping to protect vulnerable relatives as well. It all helps to keep communities well and ease that pressure downwards into hospitals.
Yeah, Nikita, I just want to ask you about NHS staff taking up the flu jab, because, you know, NHS bosses last winter wrote a letter about this problem. Only 37% of NHS staff took up the offer of the jab. In fact, the number overall of NHS staff taking the flu jab has halved since the pandemic. How concerning is this, and why aren't they getting it?
So, look, lots of staff do take up the flu jab every year, and not just in hospital, but out in the community, in primary care. But as you say, the uptake varies for lots of reasons. People are tired. Staff are really tired. We've had several very intense winters. Some will have had recent illnesses. Some are waiting to fit it in around shift patterns, so to get to convenient clinics. You know, people need some flexibility around how and when they get vaccinated. It's rarely just about reluctance. It's about access and timing and fatigue. So, you know, we need to just keep encouraging it, encouraging vaccination, because that's the key. That's what protects both staff and patients. And as I said, many staff absolutely do get it, but they're working flat out. They're doing really long shifts. They're moving between sites. So sometimes even simple things like getting to a clinic can be quite a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, and Nikita, just one final question, because there's so much going on within the NHS at the moment. There's the impending resident doctor strikes that's coming up that's going to put more pressure on as well. And there was some messaging today about not going to or the reasons why people go to A&E that make it so busy. You know, people going in who have stubbed their toe, or, you know, with all these minor ailments. Yeah. And a lot of people have said, look, that's a distraction away from the bigger problem. Those people going to A&E will be in and out very quickly. Those that are taking up the beds are there for much more serious issues. What do you make of that kind of messaging? Because presumably you don't want the message to be, don't go to A&E. Is the overall message within the NHS about going and using all the different services, like your GP, like your pharmacist? Is that getting through to the public from what you've seen?
I think it's a really mixed picture, Sarah-Jane. I did see that messaging, and it really worries me, because we will have people in the public sort of hearing that as, don't go, don't take up care, don't take up a space. And I see a lot of people still that say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to go to hospital, because they're so worried about taking up someone else's space. So I do think we have to be careful. But there are lots of options in terms of, you know, our pharmacists, our community pharmacists are brilliant at looking after you if you've got certain illnesses. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about general practice, urgent care centres or walk-in centres, and of course, all the way to A&E when people need it. And sometimes for some people, A&E really is the only option. And so So yes, we absolutely should talk about all of the options, but we have to be careful not to blame or single out patients or people in the community, because sometimes they're just not sure where to go. And the message always should be that you can get care when you need it, because that's what the NHS is for.
Nikita, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much talking to us about the strains on the NHS there, and in particular the flu problem at the moment, worse this year compared to this time last year. Dr. Nikita Kanani, thank you. And I did say stub toe, but I think one of the examples used was an ingrowing toe nail. Various messages that people are going to A&E with. Right, we'll have more on that throughout the evening here on Sky News, but still to come on this programme. That shook homes in the northwest last night. Also coming up, we'll hear all about the new comedy championing disabled people in the arts. It's from the young filmmaker Evie Jones and someone who you may recognise, the female Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker. And from Manchester with Love, we'll discuss reports that claim Oasis are being lined up to record the theme song for the next James Bond film.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
People in the northwest of England described feeling their houses shake last night after a 3.3 magnitude earthquake. Well, the tremor was felt across Lancashire and the southern Lake District, with data suggesting that the earthquake occurred off the coast of Silverdale. Well, Michael Winder joins me now from just 10 minutes down the road from there in Carnforth. Also joining us tonight, seismologist Stephen Hicks. Good evening to you both. Michael, I'll come to you first. You always imagine an earthquake to be movement, but this was a noise and most people heard it. What did you hear? What did you feel?
Absolutely, yeah. It was most certainly a noise, and it completely startled us. We were asleep at the time. It woke us up, and it was like there was a rumble. It's not what you'd expect, in all honesty. It felt more like some sort of an explosion, there was a whoosh and the house really shook. But we are actually in Silverdale. So it really felt like it was in our house, to be honest.
Yeah, what was your immediate reaction? Because I was imagining the first thing you thought of was not an earthquake.
No, funnily enough, it was basically the last thing you'd think of. We own the antique shop, Bricolage, which is in Silverdale, and we live above it. We thought that maybe something had fallen down in the shop below. We thought that someone had broken in. We thought that a house had exploded next door or something. I mean, the last thing you would think of is that it was an earthquake.
Yeah, particularly in Lancashire, but these things do happen. At this point, let's bring in Stephen Hicks, our seismologist at UCL. It was indeed an earthquake. What was happening in Lancashire last night?
Yeah, so there was the British Geological Survey recorded a magnitude 3.2 earthquake, but it was at particularly shallow depth in the crust, so it was only sort of 1 or 2 miles beneath the surface, and that really contributes to the strong shaking that Michael felt last night. So the shallower the earthquake for a given magnitude, the larger the shaking is.
Yeah, well, what can they usually feel like? Because I experienced one without realising it when I went to Turkey, and I woke up in the middle of the night and it felt like rocking, and I thought it was just my partner getting out of bed, so I went back to sleep. But he woke up the next morning and went, no, that was an earthquake. It can feel very different. So, what does it tend to feel like? Can it vary that much?
Yeah, I mean, when I felt an earthquake before, I thought the washing machine was on a spin cycle. It was all vibrating, the floors. But yeah, certainly, for a bigger earthquake, which is maybe a little bit further away, you sort of get the sort of roll in motion. Yeah. Whereas Michael, is pretty much at the epicenter. So then you end up with sort of feeling this more sort of explosive sensation, I guess, and that's because the way the seismic waves or the vibrations travel through the ground is very much like a sound wave in the air. So this is why sometimes people describe it as an explosion or like a sonic boom or like a lorry sort of going past the house.
Yeah. Michael, what was the chatter amongst the neighbours in the area when you found out it was an earthquake?
Yeah, well, again, it's the last thing you expect. And this is the power of social media. Within about, I'd say 2 minutes, it was being reported that it was an earthquake, and it's quite reassuring to get that, that knowledge immediately, because then you realise that it's not something that we need to be concerned about. It's actually, something that's fairly low risk.
Yeah, you came out of it unscathed. It was a gentle one, only 3.2, because they can be much bigger.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I was going to say, when we looked up the scale and found that I think it was 3.4, to find that that's quite low, it really makes you think, in other countries where they have much harsher ones, that it felt quite strong, to be honest.
Yeah. It must be terrifying to be involved in something bigger. Stephen, I understand this is the second earthquake to hit the UK this month. And we always think of an earthquake, particularly in this part of the world, as a rare occurrence, but is it actually that rare? What's going on beneath the Earth's surface? What's moving around?
Yeah, so on average, the UK or the British Isles would sort of experience about 3 or 4 of this size of earthquake every year. So there's already been a couple of similar magnitude events up in Scotland in recent months. Those occurred sort of further away from populated areas, so they weren't really sort of reported on as such, but when they do occur close to a populated area, then there's obviously receives a lot more attention. The UK is and the British Isles is a long way from sort of the tectonic plate boundaries where we see the world's largest earthquakes. So these are sort of the fault lines which separate the tectonic plates which the Earth's crust is divided into. We're a long way from that, but the British Isles has sort of seen the crust beneath our feet has seen sort of tectonic collisions and events millions and millions of years ago, and those have left sort of scars in the subsurface. And so occasionally we see these old scars sort of suddenly become a little bit alive again and release their sort of a little bit of pent up energy in terms of these relatively small magnitude events. Typically, the UK the largest events that we have recorded in the past in the UK tend to be magnitude no more than 5, really. There's occasionally a magnitude 6, sort of hundreds of years ago, but magnitude 5 events aren't typically going to cause too much damage. But of course, when people do experience them, they're going to be, it's going to be a shock to a lot of people.
Well, listen, Stephen, thank you so much for the benefit of your expertise. It was a small earthquake, but it certainly felt big to the people of Silverdale. Michael, as you said, you're glad it wasn't any bigger, and it is a great tale to tell. Stephen Hicks there, seismologist at UCL, and Michael Winder, who lives in Silverdale and felt that quake last night. Thanks both.
Thanks very much.
Still to come on the UK Tonight, I'm going to speak to Doctor Who star Jodie Whittaker and young filmmaker Evie Jones about representation of disabled people in the arts. Now, my next guest is on a mission to improve representation of disabled people in the arts. In 2020, aspiring actor Evie Jones was knocked off her bike by a lorry in London before then being rushed to hospital with life-changing injuries. After multiple operations on her leg, as well as skin grafts and muscle reconstruction, Evie was forced to learn to walk again. On her return to auditioning, Evie found a huge disparity with the work she was offered before she became disabled to after. So she decided to write Truckload, a short comedy film about a young woman in a near-fatal traffic accident. Let's take a look.
Oh, look at them! They are stunning! Just looking for a long walk. It's a casual Monday look. Which goes, Oh, yeah.
Period.
That's on the runway. Oh my god.
Hello? You okay? More help? Can you hear me, Liz? Is it just in your ears?
What?
Sarah! Throw it back to me, Liz.
Okay. Chair. Telly. George.
Throw it. What's the weather like?
It's nice, but it looks like it might rain.
Ask her a question, it brings her back.
Okay, who's this?
Deliver.
An easy one, George.
As you could see, the accident left Evie with not just physical injuries, but trauma as well. In that clip, you saw Jodie Whittaker starring alongside Evie in the film, Evie's story. I sat down with them both and I started by asking Evie why she first decided to write Truckload.
When I came back to acting, I found that the roles that I was going up for, I was either too disabled for or not disabled enough. And so I wrote something very specific that only I could do.
Creating your own work, something you know inside out. Jodie, how did you become involved? Because you're known for bringing underrepresented stories to screen. That's a real passion of yours. How did you and Evie meet? How did you get involved in Truckload?
So there's an incredible woman called Victoria Emsley who runs a company called Primetime, which supports female and non-binary filmmakers, and she created something called the Empower Fund, which was, my involvement was through a friend that knew her. She reached out to say, I am going to be creating a space for people to make a short film with a budget and a fantastic budget and fantastic support. And then that will open the door to people sending in scripts. And the format was then for us to, over a very significant amount of time, read, you know, a good few hundred scripts, which was incredible. And then there was a short list of the ones that we felt particularly excited about. And then we met those people and Evie won. And now we're best mates.
Well, that's the thing. You liked it so much. You actually star in it. You play Evie's mum.
So I don't star in it, babe.
No,
don't star in it.
Oh, no, there are many stars in this.
No, do you know what? What this was about was it was really important. So my role in it was to say, I will be in whatever capacity in this short, but do not write something that is not in your, that doesn't represent you. Don't write something for a 43-year-old woman from Huddersfield. That is not what we're asking for. We're not asking for stories that cater to me. I'll literally be deep background with a mop if the story isn't relevant. But what I will be... That would feel
like a waste, would it not?
Yeah, but what we wanted was unique, fantastic voices of people showing the stories they wanted to tell, which meant in that I would then be whatever role was fitting. And when this came to it and, we kind of unanimously were so overexcited about Truckload, one of the flags was, though, that, the role was your mum, and I'm on the younger end of mum.
Yeah, how does your mum feel about Jodie Whittaker playing her on the big
loves
screen?
It. She's a bit younger, she's having a great time.
It was the most fantastic experience.
25% of the UK population identifies deaf, disabled or neurodivergent, but that is no way represented on screen.
I think it's a conversation about the spectrum of disability and the way that we put in adjustments, reasonable adjustments for people working in it. And it takes effort. It takes effort from everyone, from producers all the way down the line to make that effort, because stories get better when we vary the experience of people getting involved in it. And that is what people deserve. Like you say, 25%, that is not what we are seeing on screen. Those people deserve to see that, deserve to see their experiences, those bodies, seeing a body that looks like yours is life-changing. If I'd have seen that, lots of my different experiences would be different and I would have a different outlook, I think. And I think what this film is trying to do is show that one life-changing event, for me it was becoming disabled, it doesn't just affect you, it affects your relationship with your parents, your friends, your family, the way that the world sees you, the way that you see the world, and like your relationship with your own body. And so having that represented to people felt like a really important thing to do as well.
Jodie, how important is it for you to use your position? Because you're a really well-established actor. It feels like you've been on our screen for so long. You're consistently in work, which, as we know, in this industry isn't always the case. And the female voice, the female representation on screen, even though women are over 50% of the population, it's still not 50-50 on screen. So how do you use your position to sort of change that on screen and off screen? Is it about walking into a project and looking around and asking the questions about where the women are? Where's the female input?
What is incredible for me, because I'm not a director and I don't write, so I'm the one that like hopes I get the job. But what is different is now, I would say my experience over the last few years is certainly changing, where the people behind the lens and the people kind of creating these pieces, I feel as if I'm working with more and more incredibly talented women. But what I suppose it's saying yes when someone like Victoria reaches out, because people like her are the people that are making a difference and doing that. But then what that requirement from me was just read incredible scripts and then get to work with amazing people. Just don't say no to that. I do appreciate that putting my name to something will maybe help it get across the line. And the benefit for me is then I'm completely blown away by another group of creative individuals that I'll have a relationship with and will hopefully cast me when I'm in my 70s as your gran.
Now, Sky News has spoken to 3 TikTok whistleblowers who say users are being put at risk by mass layoffs at the company. In addition to increasing the role of AI in moderating content, the social media giant is reportedly offshoring jobs to agencies in other countries. TikTok says the changes will maximise the effectiveness of moderation on the platform. Our science and technology reporter Mickey Carroll has this report.
If you use TikTok, you're going to want to hear this. Do you think these cuts are going to put people at risk, as in users?
Yes. We felt like we were part of something big, and then at the end of the day, we're the first ones to be replaced by AI or by people in other countries.
All the people that I know in the company are already with a statement that they don't have jobs anymore.
And have you all handed your laptops back in?
Yes.
These 3 whistleblowers are part of a group of more than 400 safety workers that TikTok has just gotten rid of from their London offices. They moderated some of the worst content on the internet.
And they want you to know what's going on behind these doors.
TikTok has employed tens of thousands of human moderators all over the world. For years, they sift through some of the most violent, abusive, extreme, sexual content on the internet, trying to stop it from reaching our feeds.
No rapes, no bats,
In August, the company announced sweeping cuts to its moderation teams. In fact, all of its London-based moderators were at risk. The whole trust and safety department was actually at risk, more than 400 people.
TikTok said AI could do the job of many of the moderators.
I mean, every company should do restructuring, and this is how business operates, and we understand that. But why should it be for the risk of user safety?
There are a lot of nuances in the language. AI cannot understand all the nuances. AI cannot differentiate some, ironic comment versus a real threat or bullying, or, a lot of things that we have to do with user safety, mainly of children and teenagers.
The humans it did need would be employed elsewhere.
Let's say if you see a naked body, you don't really need to be British to know it's a naked body. But when it comes to, for example, hate speech or harassment or bullying, there's always this cultural thing that maybe other people are not going to get.
TikTok told us, as we've laid out in detail, this reorganisation of our global operating model for trust and safety will ensure we maximise effectiveness and speed in our moderation processes. We'll continue to use a combination of technology and human teams to keep our users safe. And today, over 85% of the content removed for violating our rules is identified and taken down by automated technologies.
News of the cuts alarmed MPs and prompted the Science and Technology Select Committee to demand evidence that those cuts wouldn't impact user safety. When TikTok replied, it said that the cuts would have a positive impact on user safety. But they also stressed that the cuts were still only proposals. The whistleblowers have now told Sky News that that was not the case. Sky News has seen the emails sent to employees offering them mutual termination agreements that they had to sign by the 31st of October if they wanted the best payout. How many people do you think have signed that MTA?
Hundreds.
They have signed a mutual termination agreement, a legally binding contract. They've handed laptops in, they've handed passes in, they've been told not to come to the office. So that's no longer a proposal. That's a foregone conclusion. That's a plan that's been executed.
I interviewed one of TikTok's senior safety executives earlier this month, and he repeated the line that these cuts were just a proposal.
So those are proposals. There's still a process that's going through at the moment.
I mean, you just called it a proposal, but the unions say 400 jobs have gone and there's 5 people left in consultation. That doesn't sound like a proposal. That sounds like a plan that's been executed.
Well, we're still going through a process at the moment, and so there's limited amounts that I can directly comment on. But the end point of our approach when it comes to trust and safety is to make sure that the platform is as safe as possible. The power is the combination of AI moderation, so that it's working at scale across that 100 million pieces of content that is uploaded every day to the platform, plus human expertise, particularly for nuanced, complex issues, for things like appeals of content where you need a human reviewer. That's where the power comes in terms of combination.
When asked about their letter to MPs saying it's important to note that these are proposals only, TikTok told us it's entirely right that we follow UK employment law, including when consultations remained ongoing for some employees and roles were still under proposal for removal. We've been open and transparent about the changes that were proposed, including in detailed public letters to the committee, and it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise.
Whether or not these cuts impact the safety of users online will be watched closely. But for the moderators that used to keep our feed safe, their time at TikTok is over.
Coming up on the UK tonight, Live Forever and Let Die. We'll be discussing reports that Oasis are being lined up to record the next James Bond theme. And England in a promising position in the second Ashes test thanks to Joe Root. What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling? I am angry.
It is an anti-woman agenda.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Sky News, get the full story first. Free wherever you get your news. Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Coming up, we're going to discuss the reports out today that suggest Oasis are being lined up to record the next James Bond theme. That's on the way, but first Jess is here with the sport. And normally, Jess, we do not like talking about ducks in cricket. However, Joe Root has broken a long-standing duck in Australia, so we're happy to talk about them.
We are, he has. It's a landmark first Test century for him, Joe Root, in Australia, which helped England recover from a really shaky start, actually, to the second Ashes Test in Brisbane. England were well beaten in that first Test in Perth, you'll remember, and, well, they made a pretty bad start to this day-night match. Ben Duckett, Ollie Pope, both removed for naught by that man, Mitchell Starc. England were 5 for 2 when Joe Root came to the crease. What could he do? Well, Zach Crawley helped steady things just a bit with a much-needed half-century. Of course, you'll remember that he failed to score in either innings in the first Test. He was eventually dismissed, though, for 76. Harry Brook fell for 31 before Australia took the crucial wicket of the England captain, Ben Stokes, gone. In the next over, Jamie Smith went for naught, and England, well, they were in some real trouble. But the day and night belonged to that man, Root. It's taken him 30 tests, over 12 years, but he's done it. He's scored his first ever 100 in Australia. His terrible record includes captaining England during a 4-0 defeat down under in 2018. But his unbeaten 135 has given England a fighting chance of a first victory in Brisbane in 39 years. Thanks in part, though, to Jofra Archer, who joined Root to record England's highest 10th wicket stand at the Gabba. So England then closing the day on 325 for 9, and I can tell you, it is very much game on.
Well, Jess, big relief for Root, who hadn't actually been looking forward to this one.
No, it's really interesting that you wondered whether he was in the right mindset, because in the build-up to this Test, Root actually questioned whether an Ashes series needed a day-night Test, because Australia already play regular so-called pink ball matches all the time. And Mitchell Starc, who's been absolutely phenomenal throughout this series, took 6 of England's wickets this time around, said that Root's century is ironic.
I hope you guys give him some stick. You've been nailing me about 14 pink ball games that I still don't like it, and he was whinging about a pink ball Test and scored 100, so I hope you give him as much stick. But, no, with someone with that record, you know, he certainly, well, I think he scored a lot of 50s in Australia, and I'm sure he'd be relieved to get that 100.
Yeah, that's the cricket. Let's update you on the football, where there's one game in the Premier League this evening. Manchester United are taking on West Ham.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Typical Touré, absolutely brilliant. Yaya Touré tries to place it and does. Yaya Touré just have delivered the Premier League title as well.
When I started from my academy, I always loved goals. During my career, he was thinking about me not defending or running backwards, but I always keep in my mind always in the same way, like enjoying football, share that with fans, and be happy with something, you know what I mean? Because I've never been happy chasing people. I've always been happy when people chasing me. I was playing midfielder, and sometimes I have to do my duty as defending, try to protect the the fullbacks. But it's only one ball. 2 guys can do that. Me, I have to attack. And
Sky Business sponsors this report.
And now we are still waiting to find out who the next James Bond is going to be, but we might know a bit more about who will do the soundtrack for the next film. Definitely, maybe, anyway. Reports out today suggest Oasis are being lined up to record the next 007 theme tune. After their reunion tour this year, bosses at Amazon MGM apparently want the Gallagher brothers to get involved with a new Bond. Well, I'm joined now by the chair of the James Bond International Fan Club. He is David Black. That's a good name. That's almost like a double O agent. I love that. Talk to me, Oasis, would that be a good fit, do you think?
I think it would be great. Why not? I mean, it's been a tradition for the Bond movies to always try and go for big named acts, be it, even from the early days. So Oasis, yeah, you could argue they were at the peak in the 90s, but I think they have had a big resurgence. And yeah, I think it'd be great. And I think the rockier songs that we've had in the past, the sort of Live and Let Die or Chris Cornell with the Casino Royale, they're great, So, and being an old rocker myself, I think, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, quintessential British rock. I mean, should it be a British artist doing the Bond theme? Noel Gallagher has said that in the past, that he thinks it should be the sole preserve of British artists. Maybe he was making a pitch for it early doors, way back when. And of course, there'd be a huge hoo-ha if James Bond was played by an actor who wasn't British. So do you think this is something that the Gallagher brothers would go for, given that?
Well, I like to think so. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it matters if they're British or not, but why not? Yeah, keep it. Let's face it, we produce most of the best music there is in the world anyway, so, and I'm biased, so. But I think it'd be great to see them do it. I'd love to. Noel's a great songwriter, it'd be great to see what he comes up with.
Oh, yeah, he does so much, doesn't he? Ballads, rock anthems. He can pretty much turn his hand to anything. What are the other names in the frames? Because, we love a bit of speculation. And with Bond, we're permanently talking about who the next Bond will be. It makes a change to speculate who the next artist will be to record the theme.
Well, it does, yeah, to be honest. There hasn't been... Normally, there are a few rumours kicking about, but I've not heard any, and I'm quite close to it. So I've heard this rumour about Oasis, and I'm hoping it is... I think it'd be great. I hope it's true. I have to agree, Noel had slated a few of the earlier songs. I must admit, I am knocking on a bit, but when I first heard the Billie Eilish one last time, it did grate on me a bit. It did grow a little bit in the end, but...
It's grown on you?
A little bit, I think with a lot of these Bond themes, they... over time, they sort of become tied to that film, and you just accept that does sound bonded, which it didn't at first.
My one was the Madonna one. Was that Die Another Day? That grew on me.
Yeah.
Didn't like that one at the first time, but that grew on me. Best Bond theme ever?
Best Bond theme. I like things like Duran Duran, View to a Kill. I think that's a good track.
Yeah, really good. OK, well, great. We'll end on that one. The Gallagher brothers have got a lot to live up to.
Let's hope so.
Duran Duran, top choice for the head, the chairman of the International James Bond Fan Club, David Black, named to match the title of chairman of the James Bond Fan Club. Thank you for your time tonight. That's all from us. We'll see you Monday at 8.